Hello and welcome back to part 3 of my recovery restoration of this realistic TRC 457. When I left you last, I had a problem of no mic input, no modulation. Everything else seemed to work. So we are picking up where I left off in part 2 on troubleshooting the no modulation. As with any kind of attack, we need a good plan. So for us to do any planning, we need to do some studying. And basically, I have all we need here to proceed with the next section. So when we break it down into a small section here, it makes it easier to try and figure out what's going on. So on the right hand side here, mic input, couple transistors for some feedback loop here. IC3 is the initial input microphone amp. IC3 is this guy right here. Black little slab of plastic. So this section here on the radio, fairly easy to get to. This is where I'll be sticking some probes, getting some measurements. So looking back here at the schematic, IC3, got a few diodes here. I've checked these out already. They've checked out okay in circuit. And a TR20. So input, output, input, output. Basically, you know, am I seeing anything? And if I don't on either end, that'll give me a clue as to who's broken. So just basically a few little of those components. In part 2, I replaced IC4. Got me my audio output. So we know that's working. So that's all there is to it. Let's start taking some measurements. Let the probing begin. Okay, I've got my scope probed hooked up to the cathode of D21. That's what you're seeing right there. So that is right here. So this is the input to TR20. This is the output of the IC3. So let's just take a look at the scope. Got the microphone here. Let me just key it up. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Testing 1 2 3 4 1 2, testing 1 2. Okay, that looks like audio output. So we have inputs to TR20. Let me go to, let's see here. Well, what do we got after that? Nothing really active. Filter. Well, let's just take a look at the emitter on TR20. So TR20 is right there. That is TR20. Okay, scope probed hooked up to the emitter of TR20. Let's take a look again. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2. I would have suspected that I would have seen a better signal than we just saw a little earlier. I don't like that result. Well, I am going to go out on a limb here and say the buck stops there. Let me pull that transistor out and test it out. Okay, I've got my scope probe at the collector of TR20. I pulled a TR20 and it checks out okay. I'm looking here at the SAMS diagram for voltages. As I said earlier, here's TR20. As we saw in the scope, I was getting an input signal. We could see that. But when I went here to the emitter, I was getting nothing. So if this transistor checks out okay, in fact I put another one in there with a higher HFE and I just left it in. So I have a good working transistor, I have input coming in, but I have no output. So that leaves me with the collector voltage. It's supposed to be 6.3-ish on TX. So looking at my oscilloscope here, this is 0. I'm on DC and I'm on about 1 volt per division. So when I hit the microphone key up, I should get this coming up here. Nothing. To me, that says that this TR20 is missing this 6.27 volt. So I have to find out where this goes. Tag number 18. So this is the power supply schematic. And tag number 18 here. 6.27 volt. So not too complicated here. So all we really have, probably the first thing to check is this TR24. Is this guy alive? You know, probably something there to check. 9.2 volt Zener. Continuing on with this section troubleshooting, I have discovered that on TR24 here I do have the proper voltage here, 8.5 volts, so that shows up all the way down here. But when I come down to here, trying to get this voltage here, 6.2, this is not showing up. So when I go to R196 and look for a voltage there, I'm not seeing it. So somewhere in between the top of this resistor and here, there's no components. And I think the way I'm reading this schematic is that there's This is the mode switch. This is the only thing in between this resistor and there. So if I go take a look on the board, there's R192. So I'm not getting anything there voltage wise. But here the green wire, this is the one that's bringing the 8 volts from the other side of the board to this section. And when I tug on this wire, it's loose. There's no solder on the top end here, but it's loose. So I'm going to have to flip this over and take a look and do some soldering and tighten that up and see what that does for me. But I am not getting the 8 volts into this section, which should be coming here. So this does seem a little bit obvious. Let's see what that yields. Looking at the back side of the board, looky here. There's that wire. That sucker's not even soldered. I don't believe I was in this section with when I was replacing the electrolytics. To me, this looks like this never has got any solder. Well, let me solder it up now. All soldered in. I just have my DMM probe just hooked up there. And I'll power it on. Let's just key up. 8 volts. Haha! I win! Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Haha! Haven't seen that needle move. Well, that's always a good feeling when you solve a problem, and I feel that way. Let me take all this test equipment off and hook it up to an antenna, and let's just see if I am good to go. Well, I've got an antenna hooked up here. Standard channel 38. This radio is unmodded, any degree, all stock. So as I showed you earlier, I have the receive working fine on this. It was the TX audio where the problem lied. Okay, lower sideband, let's give her an audio test. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, testing 1, 2. Hello, 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 1, 2. Well, looks like we got some audio being put into this machine here, so great to see that. It's an excellent feeling to have when you come to the end of the line. And that's just how I feel with this unit here. Brought back to life. I'll just have to go through the RX and TX alignments now. And we'll be putting this one back on the shelf. It's definitely a great looker. I think it's the top of the line. The Realistics, back in the day, just looking on the shelf there, see what's next to do. I don't know yet, but come back. Thanks for watching. See ya.